What's going on, Wolves and Warriors? My name's Jay Stewart, and this is the Better Body Academy podcast, the #1 show for those looking to permanently overhaul their mind and body without dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. We banish the fitness industry BS and replace it with science-backed strategies proven through countless client transformations. In the Better Body Academy, we help busy men and women around the world get unstuck and back into momentum so they start feeling strong and sexy again. Our mission is to transform 1 million lives, and you, my friend, could be next. And on that note, let's get straight into today's show. Welcome back, guys, to the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast that you come when you're sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. In today's episode, we're going to be having a deep dive conversation about the idea of self-sabotage. Now, already one of my amazing clients has commented, I self-sabotage daily, and I think this is going to be an evergreen podcast episode that we can refer back to kind of get a bit more context on what is going on. Now, we're coming off the back of this morning, we had our men's mastermind call, our advanced program, 12 guys, the most beautiful humans, and a couple of coaches sitting down and talk and shop about life. And we got really, really deep on this call. And one of the concepts that we talked about was this idea of self-sabotage. Why is it that we almost like sometimes get into momentum and then come unstuck? So I want to start this episode by asking a few questions. Do you ever feel like you're kind of making progress, but then you come unstuck? Or it's almost like you were getting in the kind of movement or momentum, whether it's your career. When I talk about transformation, I always talk about health, wealth, and relationships. So maybe it's that your career was starting to move forward. Maybe it's your financial plan. You were starting to get it together. Or maybe it was indeed your physical health. You were getting into momentum, and then suddenly you derailed and ended up back where you started. It was really frustrating because it was like I was finally moving forward and I was feeling like, oh, you know what? Like this time it's different. This time it's different. But then the old you perhaps come up and the old habits come up again and you fell off the wagon. I want to have a conversation about what's actually going on here when that happens. So let's talk about the idea of life in the gap. Life in the gap. This is an experience that's common to all of us. There is a void or a gap, as we call it, that exists between where we currently are and where we want to get to in life. And it's not just a destination, it's kind of like the experiences that we want to have, the person that we want to come, the life we want to feel. There's always going to be a gap there because very rarely have we arrived at a point and just felt, you know what, this is it. I don't want anything to change forever. So this basically means that we are always going to be living in the gap between where we are currently and where we want to get to. So let me ask you a question. What is it that actually separates us from where we are and where we want to get to? What is it that separates us? Or maybe a better question to ask is, why are you not, or we not, already there? Some common things are, I want to be super fit, or I want to be super rich, or I want to have like the best ever relationship with my partner. Why are we not already there? Do you think it's mostly due to external factors? Perhaps that contributes partly, I'd agree. But for the most part, would you agree with me in that it's mostly because of our life and what we experience is a printout of our actions? And so the majority of the reason why we aren't where we want to be at the moment is because of the past choices that we've made and the current choices that we continue to make. Would you agree with that? So the question is, what is actually driving the choices that we make? Now, we're going to go deep on this podcast, guys. I'm just going to give you a warning. So what's driving the choices that we actually make on a day-to-day basis? I mean, all of the things that we've done in our life so far, or not done, what's driven those choices? In other words, why do we do the things that we do? Well, it's because we operate by a program. So to put that in an analogy, PC users operate mostly by the program Windows. Mac users operate by OS X. That's the program that we've installed. And we have installed a program as well. The program, what is it? Okay, it's a set of behaviors and rituals that we operate by on a daily basis. So let me get you to stop, whether you're listening live or you're watching later on a replay or listening on the podcast. Your day so far, has it been mostly the same as every other day? Or if you're on the weekend, has it been the same as most other weekends? So you wake up and you press play, right? And same routine. And when we stack those habits, hour after hour, day after day, through the process of repetition, we form a set of habits that give us our life results, good and bad. That's what the program is. The program is a collection of habits that through the course of repetition have been stacked over and over again. So it's likely that if you're watching this on a Saturday or a weekend, that you probably have done very similar to last Saturday, which will be similar to next Saturday, and those habits stack over and over and over again. And same thing for a weekday. We generally do the same thing over and over again. So it's like we're actually waking up in the morning and just pressing play, right? So a question to ask is, if you understand what I mean here around the program, where did the program actually come from? Where did it come from? Has anyone ever said to you, oh man, you're so much like your mum or dad? Oh, actually, I can see my sister-in-law's tuning in here, and man, her husband, my brother, is so much like his father is not funny. It's so maybe there's some truth to it. But how is it actually possible? How is it actually possible that a program can be inherited? Well, there's a genetic component, of course. There's a genetic component that gets passed along. But more importantly, we learn by observing and copying. We learn first from our parents, perhaps maybe older sisters, and then we get into childhood and teenage years, and we learn from the people and the environments that we spend the most amount of time with. So by learning, what does that actually mean? What does learning mean? We observe other people doing things and we copy them until we can do the same things. So this is why this old phrase of you become the product of the people you hang around or whatever, see how that makes sense? It's through observation and repetition that eventually you become the thing that you repeat all the time. So our program is a set of habits that we've just repeated from our environment. So, does the habits or does the program have a physical representation in the brain? Like, what does the program look like in the brain? If you were to say, show me my program, what would that actually look like? Well, you may have heard of this idea called neuroplasticity. It's a concept of which we talk about the wiring of the brain and the brain's ability to rewire itself over time. So if we repeat an action like drinking beer or yelling at our partner over and over again, when repeated, that action is set up as wiring inside of our brains. And the reason that actually happens is to make each repetition of that behavior in the future simpler for your brain to process. You may have heard of this idea or this phrase and not really understood it, but neurons that wire together, fire together. That basically explains why it's so hard to change anything that we do, because we've set up wiring around the things we do. Your brain cells are actually making physical connections to make the habits easier. So when Michael Jordan or Kelly Slater or Serena Williams puts in the reputed 10,000 hours of practice, what they're actually doing is wiring the nerve cells in their brain to repeat that thing that they do over and over again, in the same way that we line up the nerve cells in our brain to repeat over and over again eating cake when we're emotional. It's a habit. So it actually has a physical representation in the brain. The process of changing habits is challenging because what you're actually doing is rewiring your brain. This is why it's challenging. Lexi, if we've operated by a set of habits, a set of wired habits, which we call our program, for a decade or two, it can be pretty challenging to overcome that because they are wired in. Have you ever started to make a transformation? Maybe it's to get healthy and fallen off. And were you surprised at how difficult the change actually was? Well, when you consider that what you're actually doing is to try to rewire your brain to make better habits, to drive better behaviors so that you get better results, you can probably see why transformation is challenging. Take, for example, you wanted to become a runner and you haven't run for 10 years. You have programming or wiring set up around being a non-runner. So in becoming a runner, you first have to unlearn the program that you've operated by for a decade and then relearn a new program until it's habitual. This is the reason why sustainable change takes time. The first step in changing your results is being aware that you have a program. And this is where most people get wrong. So would you ever sit down and watch a show on Netflix of which you'd rather pull your eyes out, but you sit down and watch it and tolerate it, put yourself through an hour of misery? No, you'd just get up and change the channel, right? But that's exactly what our lives are. We don't like the results, but that's actually like we're just watching a show that we don't like, but we just keep watching it, not realizing that we can actually change the channel. And some people just keep watching the show and refuse to believe there is anything else to watch. This is why you can't push someone to start a transformation until they are ready. And by ready, they have to adopt a mindset that change is actually possible for them. You would all have family members, and maybe you're one yourself, where you repeat to yourself the idea that change is not possible for me. This is called a fixed mindset. And what we're actually saying here is the idea of rewiring the brain is actually not possible, when actually that's factually incorrect. It's been proven by neuroscientists over and over again that this wiring exists, and it is indeed possible through the process of repetition to rewire your brain. So the next step to ask yourself is, if you're trying to change anything, what do I need to do to get the result that I want? Most people just guess. And the problem with guessing is you end up doing the wrong thing really hard, and you tell people that you're working really hard, but you're working really hard on the wrong thing. So as an example, a lot of people want to get a six-pack. And so what they'll do is they'll go and do an endless amounts of sit-up. And I can tell you that if you've got a layer of fat on top of your abs, you can do sit-ups 24 hours a day for an entire year. But your abs will never show, and you'll never see a six-pack, because what you actually need to do is raise the surface level of fat. And this is what a good coach should be teaching you to do. The right thing, not the easiest thing or the shiniest thing. Does that make sense? So that's what we try to do when someone comes into the Better Body Academy, is to give them an actual plan or a program to follow. So what happens is we go out and we get into momentum. And within a few weeks, we start to see some results. Let's just pretend it's a physical transformation. We start to see some results. But despite this, despite your old habits, you're forcing these results through willpower alone. It hasn't become habitual yet. You haven't got the wiring to support it yet. It's just occurring through willpower. But then usually what happens, right, is after 3 or 4 weeks, your willpower starts to run a bit dry. and then the shiny object seems to pop up just at the right time. Your motivation was high at the start, and then it started to subside, and you started to look for other things. And you just can't work out why you can't just do the thing that you want to do. Why can't I just start? I said that I wanted to get in a bikini or a pair of shorts for summer. That's what I want. Why can't I just do the thing that I want to do? It's because the wiring isn't yet installed. You can't undo decades of repetition in a few weeks, which is why quick fixes don't work. Guys, self-sabotage is real. Oftentimes when these moments of self-doubt come up, we start to question ourselves rather than acknowledging the progress that we have made, right? So thoughts surface like, I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough, I'm just wasting my time trying to change. Those types of thoughts just continue to circulate in our mind. That's our inner autopilot trying to correct our course back to the old us. And behaviorally, we self-sabotage to prove our shitty story true. I told you I was a failure. Look, here's the proof. I can't do it. We go from holding off alcohol for a month or two to completely smashing ourselves in a weekend and feeling sorry for ourselves. We go from eating really well with a little bit of indulgence in there to having an emotional binge that lasts 3 days where we eat 4,000 calories a day and get to Sunday and feel horrendous. We go from training and being active to just saying, you know what, I'm a failure, and sitting down and doing absolutely nothing. We go from being proud of ourselves and moving forward in momentum to repeating that shitty story about how we're useless, dumb, and all the rest. And usually what happens is those self-sabotaging actions just cause us to dig a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper hole, of which we feel worse. That, my friend, is the cycle of self-sabotage. This is why transformation is about progress over a lifetime, not over the course of 5 weeks or 2 weeks. And that's what pisses me off about this fitness industry. Selling people fucking supplements and ridiculous diets without giving them the training around the mindset that they need to be successful so that they can overcome their own self-sabotaging behaviors. It's not because you're a failure. It's because you've had a program that exists for years and years and years that takes time to replace. And the only way to break that self-sabotaging program is to be aware that it exists. And any program that doesn't have, any training or coaching program that doesn't address the mindset component, it'll be a recipe for failure. It won't last. You'll do things on a surface level for a while, but then nothing will change over the long term. Because you used your willpower, but you didn't change your wiring, the program, the brain setup to get it to do the things that you want to do. I'm bringing you this episode, guys, off the back of the mastermind call this morning that we did, because even for men and women that have been working at this for a while, it still takes time. Through how did we learn the program? We learn the program from observation and repetition. How do we unlearn the program to install a new program that sets us up for a better life? Repetition. And if it takes 10,000 hours or whatever the noted amount of time it is to break in a habit, then that's how long it's going to take. I know the key to you dominating in any area of your life is to start playing the forever game, not mucking around in these quick fixes and band-aid solutions. And I know that the more self-aware you actually become, the more you'll be able to shine a light on the things that have held you back for so long. And it's this awareness that will ultimately lead to you breaking the self-sabotage cycle. Now, when you do that, that will allow you to find your next level. And there's always a next level. And just when you think, I'll be happy when I hit this thing, you hit that thing and then you adapt to that thing. And then you go on search of your next level. And that's why we're always in this gap. We're always in this void. And if you experience that void as lack and failure and self-sabotage, the quality of your life is going to be absolutely shithouse. What separates you from where you want to get to is not failure. It's probably that you haven't failed enough. And it's the fact that we haven't attained the mindset to get to the next level. That's not failure. That's not lack. That's just that we haven't done the thing yet. Happiness is found in growth. And the way I see it is that if there's more people growing, there's more happiness to be found. And with the information that I kind of provide in this podcast, what I'm trying to catalyze here is for you to get some self-awareness around this stuff. Sometimes we've got to back off flogging ourselves and trying so hard, like, I'm working so hard, when actually what we need to do is change our minds. This might require a slightly different strategy. It might require, some repetition of a different nature. And this is where, you start to unlock these new levels. So guys, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, that podcast. If it didn't, then maybe you need to go back and listen to this. The first time I heard this stuff, it just kind of went over my head. And like inherently, the idea that I'm pressing in this podcast is that through repetition, we get better. I started to understand and integrate this for myself. And then I started to see the benefit. I heard it the first time and I didn't really understand it. The second time and I didn't really understand it. When you start to realize that you can change yourself through the repetition of the right things, this is what brings the benefit. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast you come to when you're sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. I'll see you in the next episode. Wolves and Warriors, thank you so much for tuning in. If this podcast is hitting the mark for you and giving you the confidence to start your own personal journey, I want you to hit me up on Facebook or head over to my Instagram at jstewart_BetterBodyAcademy and DM me with the words Better Body Academy. I want to give you the tools to permanently overhaul your mind and body without dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Our mission is to achieve 1 million lives transformed. And you, my friend, could be next. So hit me up on Facebook or head over to my Instagram at jstewart_BetterBodyAcademy and DM me with the words Better Body Academy, and we can have a chat about whether we can help you with your transformation goals.